Alright, figuring out a few things on where it's appropriate to use these little battery tender jumper packs and where not. And fortunately, my truck battery here is not dead, so on this little experiment, I'm playing around with something that's got a bit of a margin of safety. But basically, the way these things work is you plug it in into a little booster thing goes into the side of the jumper box, this little miniaturized jumper box. It doesn't have a whole lot of amp hours in it, but it can boost the amperage for a very short period of time, let's say to help boost the vehicle to jumpstart a dead battery. It's not something that's going to bring your battery up from stone cold dead, however. What it basically does, it artificially boosts the amperage on a system in order to kind of get the starter to kick and hopefully get the vehicle started. With this, it's not one of my problems. I'm just kind of experimenting with getting the cables changed around, because one of the things I find is a bit of a safety issue is, you know, the great big alligator clips that come on this stuff. So I've changed it out for these quick detach OEM style plugs. I noticed that the cable here was a 10 gauge, so I bought a 10 gauge cable here. I bought the thickest cable I could find for this end that goes onto the battery. That's a 12 gauge. Now, the way cable gauging works, the higher the number, the thinner the cable. So what this came with was a 7.5 amp fuse that popped almost immediately when I put everything in. Fortunately, there's a little indicator light on this thing that would tell me whether or not I had reversed the polarity. Turns out it wasn't the case. But I've got to up the fuse on this thing. Now, if I up it to, let's say, a 20 amp fuse, I almost lose fuse protection on this. If I were to hook something up wrong in the future, let's say get polarity wrong or something like that. So it's really a matter of keeping the spare fuses on hand for those times when you might need to use a higher amperage battery booster, as opposed to normally keeping the smaller amperage fuse in there to protect circuits in case, let's say, a solar panel or a battery charger of some sort is hooked up in bad polarity or something shorted and started heating up. So, little less of the day on this. Now, the other thing that happens is, with these OEM plugs, it's not necessarily polarity self-safe the way Anderson power pole connectors are. So occasionally, depending on whether something's an energy sending device or receiving device, you may be daisy chaining batteries or hooking other stuff up. You want to be able to reverse the pole positions on a plugs. That's where these little 2-into-1 three-way connectors can come in useful, because it'll determine, you know, you can flip it by using both ends of this on different ends of a wire or something like that. The thing you got to be really careful about, though, is that you can have a hot post here that starts scratching around or bouncing around in your engine compartment and short out on something. So just something to be aware of in this little life hack. Another thing is that when you change batteries in a vehicle, change over, and you use a lot of accessory in a vehicle, change over to a battery that's accessory friendly. If you get the RV and Marine starting batteries, they still have plenty of starting power. The cells will be shaped a little bit differently so that you have some deep cycle function to it. And if it has a deep cycle function to it, you get the extra connecting points on the battery. They're always going to correspond. The negative is always going to be on the same side as the negative big post, same on the positive side. But what that allows you to do is hook other accessories up without interfering with your onboard regular starting power and computer systems. So if you're working on a vehicle or doing other stuff, you can isolate the two power systems from each other even though they use the same battery.